The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, Financial Transparency. What are the goals, obstacles, and ROI? Our host today is Tom Robbins, and he is joined by Fred Deal, Assistant to the Town Administrator of Erie, Colorado, population 22,000. We encourage your questions throughout today's webinar. The Q&A feature is located at the top of your screen under the Options dropdown and on the control panel of the GoToWebinar. Also, you can send in your questions directly via the chat feature. Just select All Organizers and send your questions to us. Again, thank you for joining us today. Let's get started.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we appreciate it. And first off, I wanted to thank you, Fred, for taking the time to talk with us today. I guess before we hop into some of the questions, would you mind spending maybe a few minutes kind of telling us a little bit about yourself and kind of what you do within Erie?
Sure. Thanks, Tom, and thanks to everyone else who hopefully will. I have something to offer, and I appreciate Secreta and ICMA for providing this opportunity. I'm assistant to the town administrator in Erie, Colorado. We're a North Metro Denver suburb. We're a bedroom community in transition, currently 22,000, and we're going to be 40,000 pretty darn quickly here. Again, a master plan community, highly educated, household median income of about 110,000. We're young families, and a very active outdoor community in general. Denver metro area and the Front Range is high growth in general due to just superb amenities in the outdoor environment. What I do as assistant to the town administrator is whatever the boss tells me to do, but that breaks down into I oversee communications and marketing, economic development, human resources, and IT. And we'll take a lead with the media as well. A quick story, tell me if I'm getting too far ahead here, Tom, but in terms of transparency, in April of last year, we had a new board, and with a promise, there was a sweeping change. Typically, we'd only have 3 trustees and a mayor's position up. Due to some resignations, we had 5 of the 7 seats up. So there was quite a sea change on our board, the makeup of our board, and it was clear that the majority ran on a campaign of transparency. So as a staff, we needed to recognize that, and we were already underway with a new website that we were going to launch, and we decided that we needed to carve out our own transparency function. I'll highlight that a bit later. And we wanted during this time frame, we wanted to do whatever we could to support our new board and the new mayor with their transparency initiative. And that's it in a nutshell. Maybe I'll just leave it at that point right now, and ask you for your next question, Tom.
Yeah, no problem. So when you guys were thinking about transparency, I mean, one of the questions that we often hear is, how did you define transparency? I mean, what was kind of I hate to use the word definition, but, kind of how did you guys think about it? And then how did you define it as you tried to define it as how you were going to solve the problem?
Well, see, actually, I was much more comfortable with translucency, and that just didn't play too well, or somewhat opaque. But no, that's a great question. Is that sometimes new governments, new elected leaders are, reacting to the last board. So there were certain areas, certain issues that, as I said, we're a fast-growing community. There were a couple development issues that were a factor in people running for the new board, and they thought not enough information was out there. So what does that mean? It means that we need to make all of our agendas and all public documents easily accessible. And so we're also, as I mentioned, a young, affluent, and a high-tech community. Many of our residents are working in Boulder or Denver in high-tech or at one of the universities. So more app-oriented, and as good as we think our new website is, as graphically robust, as easy as it is to navigate, we need to look at other ways to put government literally into the hands of our residents and our staff and our elected and appointed officials. Again, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but I can tell you already staff and some of the elected and appointed officials are making good use of the product because it's more in line with what the devices they're using every day. So you want a definition of transparency, and of course it's always that's a tricky one. I would say that it's how we've approached it so far with our new mayor and our new board is to offer them opportunities. It includes social engagement tools, other providers that I'm guessing participants are familiar with in terms of social engagement, and it's a back and forth. We may be heavy on a social engagement tool for several months or one quarter of the year or half of the year, and then we realize we need to be somewhere else. We decided to look at Socrata's open budget at a time when this new board was looking at the town's budget for the first time. They wanted to go page by page, literally page by page. We thought this was an opportunity to graphically mirror what the board was expressing in open meetings onto our website, into our mobile app. So that's a bit of how we got here.
No, I appreciate it. I guess kind of the next question that we often hear that we'd love to get your thoughts on is, you know, when you decided you were going to do financial transparency, you know, I mean, getting from kind of, gee, we want to do this to we've actually got something, there's a set of challenges and strategies that have to be rolled out. And I know a lot of people listening are always asking that question about, you know, what challenges did you encounter, you know, and how did you address them, you know, to really end up with the product that you had?
Yeah, well, first, I have to be clear, as excited as staff was in looking at this and thinking this would be another cool device, if you will, no one was the public wasn't beating down our doors saying, for crying out loud, why are you hiding the budget information? But the fact is, as attractive as our 110-page PDF is, you know, our 2015 budget, that's what it was, you know. All the information's there. I mean, when you know you've got that book from high school up in the attic, you know it's there, but maybe it's going to take you a while to get there, and you're going to come across a lot of other things. Some of them kind of interesting. Some of you go, oh, why did I put that there? But I think that's where we wanted the improvement. So I would never say that there was staff internal to the town of Erie who was pushing back, but something I'll talk a lot about why I think this initiative was unique is paint the picture. So we have the town of Erie, population 22,000. When we look at some of our neighbors, we're a much leaner organization. What does that mean? The resources are such that we don't have a lot of depth in a lot of our departments, right? Whether it's IT, finance, communications and marketing, economic development, administration. We were in the process of just completing a conversion to our ERP system, Enterprise Resource Planning, financial systems. So finance is tied up with that. They're trying to make sure that payroll is just going to get out by the end of the year. We're also presenting to a new board of budget for the first time, as I mentioned. we've just come out with a new website. We're looking at a new mobile app and other software as a service options, and we've got to consider, is this the right time, and how are we going to do this? So I think it was wading through that initial wall, if you will, of the public's not asking or demanding for more transparency in terms of financial or budget, but we thought it tied in well for the new elected officials. So it was definitely driven by administration. Another thing in terms of budget, this is something, with all due respect, I batted around with the Socrates staff. I go, it's not open budget. It doesn't even deal with revenues. This is just capital and operating. But got over that too, because a lot of times when we're talking with the public, it's about where are their dollars going. So we thought it was an effective way. We just wanted to make sure that when we launched this, we didn't want the public to think that this is the only way we're presenting our budget, because it's as good a job as it does, in some ways it doesn't tell the whole story, but it certainly shows where Erie's putting its resources, for the current budget year. Anytime you make a decision to present information, in this case financial information, in a different way, people are asking the question why, and rightfully so. So that's a bit of the background there.
No, I think that's great. I think kind of following up on that, and obviously, doing financial reporting is something that, cities and people have done for years. How is it different, and how do you think about it kind of differently with something like a budget tool like Socrata Open Budget, and how does it kind of differ or enhance kind of your existing financial reporting?
Well, I'd put it in the latter overall, and time will tell. We went up live in December, but I think it's an enhancement, and as I mentioned, it's taking a snapshot of capital and operating. What's different is making the decision to not even use the term or the graph general fund, right? There's a lot that goes under at least our general fund. Public doesn't think that way, right? They don't know what that means. So we just decided, by we, me, decided that we're just going to, remove one more cloak of secrecy or some kind of veil that's confusing, and just list outright all the different various departments and divisions that goes under there. So I would definitely, put it under the character or the heading of an enhancement, because there's plenty of folks who do want to drill down and see that 120-page document. So.
No, and that's a great point. I think kind of following up on that, I mean, often what people talk about is, it's always one thing to, purchase a system. It's always another thing to implement it. Can you talk a little bit about, how you deployed it and what the impact was, and hopefully minimal impact on your staff time or your workflow?
I painted a bit of a picture of how busy we are on a daily basis. We're a growing community. It's not static, and from the get-go, I was not quick to want to go with this. I mean, I asked a lot of whys. Town administrators under, well, I'll touch that later. But I would say that I knew immediately if we were going to go forward, how to protect finance staff. And it was a department of 2 at that time, based on, typically it's a department of 3, it was a department of 2. All those things I mentioned, I can't ask finance to be the lead on this. I couldn't ask communications or IT either. Town administrator thought it was a priority. I bought into that very quickly, and decided, even though I'm the worst guy for it, most days of the year, I was the best guy for it at that time. So I just took it on, and I shielded other staff from it until I needed to. And I would say this, the reason I finally decided to it, if anybody's ever gets a phone call from Andrew Ho, he's a salesperson from Socrata. I'm not here to sell Socrata. You know, I can just tell you my experience with this guy. First, for anyone in Socrata who's near his desk, slap him for me. But his persistency paid off because it worked for Erie. After the conversations, we knew it was a fit. We wanted to do a very specific task. And in this instance, I've heard before that apps should be single purpose, don't get mission creep. This was a very single purpose app that we wanted to use, so the sales team was persistent, convinced me we could do this in a short time frame. Even though I've never worked with data sets before, that's not who I am. Then the team member, Daryl, who worked with me, he learned pretty quickly what my capabilities were. I'm not the technical guy, but he learned that if he gave me something, let me go back and forth on the spreadsheets, then I could fumble around with it for a few days and then get it uploaded. Once I did it once, I learned how to do it. So that's a bit. I had to protect staff from this. We had project fatigue. Again, it's real easy for organizations with minimal staff to think that, hosted software as a service is the answer to everything. You still have to manage it. But this one I thought was limited in focus and scope, and that we could get it done within about a month, and we did.
Perfect. Well, that kind of leads to the next question. Can you maybe spend a few minutes talking about how you overcame your limited resources to, get this thing up in 30 days? I think that's a huge that was a huge undertaking. So maybe you can give points to, examples and best practices for those people that are listening.
Well, if you'd look at my desk, you'd know just how organized I am. But in my best days, I can do just that. And that's what it would take. You have to make the decision. This is something, as I said, I was very concerned about project fatigue. I knew we as an organization were up to our ears. We were already pedaling pretty fast, a lot going on. The first thing I did was something to the effect of, okay, town administrator, you can go to an ICMA conference again, but you can never pass out your business card, and you definitely can't pass out my business card. All kidding aside, we then managed it. I worked with Socrata, directly. I convinced the finance director. I know you're hesitant to release a budget that isn't quite finalized. Give that to me so I have a document. I have a data set so I can work with Socrata to get it plugged in. We can look and see a draft website, if you will, and then I'll call you in when I need you. And that's it. I mean, again, being the wrong person for the job, it took me longer to stumble through, and it's going back and forth. In this case, the Socrata team, if someone's choosing a different product, I know that's not what we're talking about today, but it's managing that time, and I would say we worked well together we didn't waste anybody's time. We had weekly meetings. These weekly meetings were 5 minutes, maybe 10. Again, perhaps that's because Erie chose to, limit what we were asking from the product. We wanted open budget, we wanted operations and capital, and we wanted to target 2015 and not look backwards.
Great. So, and you covered some of it, but how did Erie determine that open budget was the right solution? Was there kind of any criteria that you would recommend, whether people are looking at Socrata or someone else, that is things that they should make sure that they look for in a solution?
There's a component, or I don't want to say we all, I said, sometimes there can be a tendency to, well, this is cool, this is a cool product, let's use it for its own sake, for the sake of transparency. There can always be an element of that, but again, our time is valuable, and you're not going to, rest on that tenet alone. I truly think in this case, they're just it's atypical. This process. One of the reasons I'm excited talking about this experience with this product is very different in how we handle it. It truly was the right time and the right place. It helped us get the right message out. I mean, that's the communications model: right person, right time, right place, and it ultimately just fell in line. So I think there's a bit of serendipity here, but there was a lot of back and forth with Socrata before we pulled the plug. I think, maybe this is something that'll come up later, but you do have to ask yourselves a lot of questions. I mean, suddenly when you see your budget in graphic form, it may look differently than what you anticipated. And I can talk a bit about more of that. Yeah, so there is some risk. Some people, that's true of any communication. Sometimes you think you nailed it, and depending on opposition or someone who has a different take, they may push back and say, well, I didn't realize this. Erie's budget for 2015 looks a lot different visually through the Socrata app than it does on paper, and that can be a good or a bad thing.
Yeah, if you could actually maybe talk a little bit about, you said it looks different, and that can be good or bad. I mean, what should people kind of think about that? Because I think you're right that, you project it to look one way, and it may not actually look that way.
Well, I'll play off the concept that we're in Colorado. Water is king out here, right? So we're a growing community. Our master comprehensive plan is, a decade more old, but it has planned for the growth, right? It's no accident Erie is as successful as we are because we've planned for it. It should be a surprise to nobody. We're so well positioned. And part of that is in Colorado, in Erie, if you want to grow, you want to develop residential and commercial, you're going to need water. We've planned for it. There's a price tag on that. Sometimes people don't understand it. When we show you the open budget site later, there'll be no doubt that the town of Erie is in the water business. And so you can look at it one way as, Erie, you're doing a heck of a job looking out for our community and planning wisely and thinking of water as a precious commodity, because it truly is. You could also look at it as the opposite, and whatever the opposite of what I just said is, meaning how come we're spending so much money on water? This is a terrible thing, yada, yada, yada. So I think that's it. And in short, when I go there, our public works director, when I shared it for the first time, that was his comment. He goes, well, there's no doubt we're in the water business. So for other communities, there may be it may appear differently, right? That may or may not be a factor, but I think that was one something we hadn't discussed and worked through. I don't think there's a downside to it, right? But people will have a reaction when they see just how many of our resources are going towards that. It's something to consider. Every town will have their unique issues.
Great. When you think about kind of the idea of your application, how do you keep your financial data up to date, and then measuring success, right? Because I think everyone listening is all project driven, and we want to make sure that we're showing the best value.
Right. Real quick, as I said, easy to fall into the trap of, hey, let's have all these software and these apps and then not maintain them. One of the hardest things about a website is once it's up, great, it looks great, now you got to maintain it. in Erie's case with open budget, we've got the 2015 budget up. It is what it is. At least twice a year, we have supplemental appropriations, and we'll make those updates. Would Erie consider, there's another product, and I think it's called Expense or Expenses, something like that. Would Erie consider that so that our public at some point in the future would have access to real-time expenditures, either monthly or quarterly, however that would work? Possibly. I don't know. That would be both a budget decision and a transparency communications decision if you want. But analytics is key. Socrata staff helped me make that link with Google Analytics to track it. To date, if I was to report to the board in terms of traffic on the site, that's nothing that's going to blow anyone away in terms of numbers. But so it's a work in progress, but I would follow up with, part of it is we were focused on getting open budget live within, I believe, a day of the budget being adopted. And at that same time, there were several more heated issues going on in our community. So did that message get lost in the midst of a couple important other issues? It did. So what we've talked about internally is how do we, throughout the year, bring attention to this tool, to this app. I'll just share with you, I think, because we want its usage to maintain. We want folks to know about it. Real quickly, I think one way we can do that in terms of marketing is when we send out action items after every board meeting saying this is what the board did, if there's an expenditure, we can link that to the open budget. Hey, by the way, here's where you can view this to see how your dollars are spent. So it's a work in a work in process in terms of maintaining the analytics.
No, that's great. Now, obviously, I know folks listening, we really want to kind of take a look at your site. Would you be willing to do kind of a demo for us and kind of show us the good work?
No, I'm sorry, I can't do that.
Yeah.
No, of course, I'd be happy to. So I just got, and I got to talk a little time, I just got to show my screen, so I'm going to go ahead and click that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, I'm going to click that. And let me know if you've got what you need.
And there we go. We are seeing the Town of Erie website.
Okay, so the Town of Erie website, like I said, we launched, again, it was in process before the new board. We added a feature that we call transparency. I'm trying to circle that. So maybe this helps answer your question from earlier, Tom, in terms of what is transparency. If you wanted to distill it down into this portion of our website, we wanted people to go to one place and say, look, all of our agendas, the archives, budgets, the code of ethics, oil and gas operations is a big deal for us. Development is a big deal for us, as I mentioned. We just want them to have one place, and then they're one or two clicks away from what they need. So that's how we've made it easy in terms of the website. And then I'll just hover over to the actual app we're talking about, click on that, and internet access is good today, so there you go. So there it is. I'm guessing people who are on the other end, participating in the webinar have seen your product in some form, either with another city or town. So here it is. In terms of, like I said, we were always happy pretty quickly with the graphics, easy to understand. Perfect world, could we make it look more like our website? Yeah, we'd love that. But I think you can see what I was talking about earlier. On the $31.7 million in operating, we're in the graph form right here. What is it, water? We got $8.85 million for water operating, and we've got $7.18 in capital. So logically, of course, those of us on staff, knows where money's going. We're familiar with the budget. But to see it in this form when you talk about that. So maybe to follow up on my point earlier, someone considering this should think about, hey, do you have folks out there that says, well, the town's spending X on public safety, but you got X on parks and rec, and you got X on water. Your priorities are in line or they're out of line. But isn't that what the transparency is all about, to begin that conversation? That's the risk. And if you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. I'm sorry, I just used that metaphor. You can slap me. But it's true. There's risk. There's risk to staff and to the board, in our case the board or a council, and there should be a conversation about that. So, and another thing is, if you look at our map, and I'm not a GIS guy either, but I don't know if this is GIS or Google, quite frankly, but you can see it visually on the map. If you click on one of the larger circles, the larger the circle, that also indicates the larger project size. If I click on that, sure enough, I see that it's a water project at our biosolids facility. It has the location. And here's something in the bottom screen I got to tell you. This is not where, at least as a town, we've decided to invest resources right now, meaning going through where it is in the planning or completion stage. We don't have the resources to take advantage of that part of open budget at this time. I'm happy to click down. We went down, we think we drilled down as far as you could, meaning if people are interested in water, we'll keep using that as an example. Then you can go down to the debt service. We decided to just show it all. In fact, even some items that may not be have any amount budgeted for this year, but that it is a typical line item within that budget. So I could keep going down if you want. But we think this speaks to a resident, depending on their level of interest, they can drill down as far as they want. So that's where I'd start and be happy to go anywhere else if you'd like.
No, I think we've got kind of two questions that people have asked.
Okay.
And I guess that, I guess the first one is, why should smaller governments make financial transparency a priority? What advice would you give them?
I think if planned well, if thought out well, it can actually save time and answer a lot of questions. Like I said, no one was breaking down our door for an easier way, but we get questions all the time, and sometimes the conversation may shift from, why is my water bill so high, or why is rec fees so high, or how come you're not spending enough on public safety. I think it can be helpful, but you have, like I said earlier, you have to be ready to know what your level of maintenance or involvement will be going forward. Overall, like I said, we knew our engagement with this product would be set it and forget it until our first supplemental appropriations, where we would update it, and we would make a decision going forward whether we want to go any more robust. Okay, so it met our target. We wanted to get the 2015 budget out in a graphic way. We'll update it at least twice during the year, and then we need to make the decision if we have the resources to go any further than that. It's available 24/7, and like I said, I'm guessing smaller communities such as Erie will have their budget document in some form or fashion. This just lets people navigate to their area of interest much quicker than a table of contents.
Perfect. I guess we've got a couple more questions, so folks that are out there, feel free to send them in. Could you talk a little bit around kind of your goals for next year? I know a lot of people were interested in what you were thinking you might do with the application next year.
Well, you stumped the star there. We're really not that far. I'm still shaking off last night's meeting that went till midnight, and then dealing with the to-do list from that. So, in a certain extent, you caught me off guard with that. But I'd say that would what we will need to do is there's a couple ways we will determine the success of this. And our biannual citizen survey is scheduled for spring of this year. Would we want to do a little sampling there to see what usages have? A possibility, maybe not. I really think we need to continue to promote the value of this on a regular basis, and I think that will come through deliberate marketing, if you will, of the board's effort in transparency as it relates to the budget decisions they make throughout the year. People need to know it's available and that this is how the town's decided to operate. So I owe you an answer on that in terms of any specifics, but we met our goal for 2014/beginning of 2015, and it's going to take some continued attention.
No problem. So another question from someone in the audience, and obviously we know that you're very early in this, but have you seen any additional resident engagement based on the visualizations, or are you thinking that you will see some additional engagement from your citizens around that?
Well, what we've seen is that initial push where people are checking out the site, right? So that's good. That's good. Because it's the new tool, and we know that a couple of our trustees have shared that on say, for example, their Facebook pages. So it's good. We think, but what I don't have for you at this point, since this is hot off the presses, is how our residents are using it. I think that will come, knowing our community is very engaged. Like I said, that's the nature of our community. It's one of the exciting reasons people like to work here as well as live here, is that there's so much activity going on. We have new residents moving in every day, so to position ourselves to be able to tell our story to someone who doesn't know it quickly, that's important. And many people will want to start with the budget. Other people will want to start with the special events calendar. But if you're new to our community and you want to know where our priorities are, this is a great way to tell our story. And I got to say, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, great, thanks.
Perfect. Yeah, no problem. So another question is, are you seeing any internal use cases? Anyone in the other city staff using the application?
Absolutely. Yes, it's a great resource. For example, now here I am on a webinar saying, hey, look at this cool app. I'm still a guy who I have a hard copy of the budget on my desk. That's changing, at least partly now. I use it as an app. My staff is using it in terms of, what did we budget for economic development, travel, and conference again? And it's a lot quicker. It is definitely being used internally. We talked about that, or Socrata presented that to us. We didn't think that as valuable, or it wasn't a reason we decided to go this route, but we are seeing that absolutely.
No problem. And then, how are you sharing your data with state leadership? Has Erie looked at using this app or anything involved in this app?
I'm not sure I understand your question, meaning sharing it with state leadership?
Yeah, so the question is, how are you sharing your Erie data with state leadership? So I'm assuming they're referring to, Colorado leadership. If not at all, I don't know if you're sharing anything to the state level this way or not.
Short answer is no, in terms of formal reporting or any type of the short answer there is no. We're not. It's available. I can tell you the state has found that we're using it and has reported it through their tweets, but I would say that's the extent of it.
No problem. So we appreciate, obviously, folks that have asked questions, and any additional questions we get, we can work with Fred on possibly getting a blog post put up to get those questions answered. You know that Fred's time is important, and he had a rough meeting last night, so we want to make sure that we give him an opportunity to have a nice lunch, Fred.
Well, I just want to clarify, there's never a rough meeting. It did go late. I just want to say I appreciate this. Originally, you know, when Secreta reached out, I said yes. I didn't know the connection with ICMA, but I do think if it's primarily ICMA members, you know, I'm not here hawking a product, but I think in this case, it was different for me. The experience was different in terms of making some decisions relatively quickly to support our Board of Trustees goals, having a vendor on the other end who was very nimble and flexible, and that's what we needed. And from a staff perspective, like I said, I was the wrong guy for the job, and felt that ultimately our decision to go forward with this product at this time was the right decision. So.
All right. Well, we appreciate it. For those that are watching, we have a poll. If you'd like to learn more about financial transparency, please feel free to let us know. And Fred, on behalf of Secreta, I wanted to thank you for your time today. We absolutely appreciate it, and I know based on the questions that we're getting that people did as well. So thank you very much. And for those of you that are listening, thank you for joining us, and we're going to go ahead and return you back to your day. And Fred, once again, thank you for spending the time with us.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Well, everyone have a great day, and I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. Thank you.